So what is erythropoiesis? Poiesis means formation or to make. Therefore, erythropoiesis is the formation or the production of red blood cells or erythrocytes. This is going to require two of the B complex vitamins, folic acid and B12. These are necessary for DNA synthesis. In addition, it also requires iron to synthesize hemoglobin, which is the pigment located within the red blood cell. Where does it occur? It occurs in the red bone marrow. The stem cells located within the red bone marrow are called hemocytoblasts. These are a type of pluripotent cell. Hemocytoblasts are the stem cells for all of your formed elements. The hormone that increases erythropoiesis or red blood cell production is called erythropoietin, or EPO. It is released by the kidneys. The stimulus for the release by the kidneys is decreased oxygen to the kidneys. This is what is called hypoxic kidneys. Therefore, hypoxic means low oxygen to the tissues. Don't get this confused with hypoxemic, which means low arterial oxygen. They are related to one another, but the terms mean different things. This illustration shows you the location of the red bone marrow. You can see in infants, the bone marrow is all red bone marrow. As we age, though, the bone marrow, the red bone marrow, is replaced by adipose tissue, and this is called yellow bone marrow. Notice in the femur here that the red bone marrow in the adult is going to be found next to the head of the femur in the proximal epiphysis. In an adult, the red bone marrow is located primarily in flat bones, in the skull, the ribs, the vertebrae, the sternum, the coxal bones, but also in the proximal epiphyses of the humerus and the femur. This illustration looks at all of the cells involved in erythropoiesis. We're going to begin with the stem cell on the left, the hemocytoblast. Once the hemocytoblast becomes a proerythroblast, it is a committed cell, meaning that the only type of formed element it will become is a red blood cell or erythrocyte. The next stage is a basophilic erythroblast. During this stage, the cell is synthesizing ribosomes. Remember, ribosomes are your protein factories. You're getting the machinery ready to begin the synthesis of the protein hemoglobin, which occurs in the next phase, in the polychromatic erythroblast. Finally, when you get to the orthochromatic erythroblast, the nucleus is ejected. Recall from lab that mature red blood cells are anucleate, meaning they don't have a nucleus. So they eject the nucleus. When they eject the nucleus, they become a reticulocyte. This is the cell that then enters into the blood vessel. Reticulocytes will mature into erythrocytes in about 2 days or less. You can notice here that the erythrocytes are biconcave, and that's where they've lost the nucleus and it's caved in. Erythrocytes are slightly smaller than reticulocytes, and in the reticulocytes, you're going to have extranuclear RNA, and those are the stringy things that you see in the illustration. This whole process takes about 15 days. You don't need to know all of these cells, but the ones that I do want you to know will be the hemocytoblast, the proerythroblast, the reticulocyte, and the erythrocyte. Remember, the hemocytoblasts are the stem cells for all of your formed elements. The proerythroblast, pro meaning before, this cell is committed to becoming an erythrocyte. The reticulocyte is the form of the cell that is ejected or moves into the blood vessel. This has a clinical significance, the levels of reticulocytes in your blood. These levels are normally very low, 1% or so. And so when these levels become elevated, there's a clinical significance for that. Erythrocytes then will be your mature red blood cells. So what happens to reticulocyte counts during hypoxia? Will the numbers go up or will they go down? Remember that EPO is released by the kidneys when the kidneys experience hypoxia. This increases the rate of erythropoiesis. So this would increase the rate of reticulocyte production, which would increase the amount that you have in your blood of these reticulocytes. So an elevated count of reticulocytes then would indicate a decreased oxygen carrying capacity of your blood, since it is low oxygen that stimulates the release of the erythropoietin. In this histology slide, you can see the reticulocytes at the end of the arrows. The dark staining structures inside the cells or extranuclear RNA. This illustration shows you how you maintain oxygen level carrying capacity in your blood. When oxygen levels in your blood decrease, the kidneys become hypoxic. They release EPO in response, which goes to the red bone marrow and increases the production of erythrocytes through erythropoiesis. This will increase the amount of red blood cells in your blood, increasing oxygen carrying capacity of the blood, returning the blood oxygen levels back to normal.